Welcome everybody. This is a long-awaited ProgCast, and it's around the critics' top 50 for this year, which might cause a bit of debate. And in the room we have, yes, laughing away, we've got Santa, Jerry Ewing. Hey, hi Jerry.
Hey.
We've got news editor Julian Marszalek.
Hey.
Hello.
And we've got DCI Russell Fairbrother. Hey,
They've let me out the cell for a moment, and I'm in the interview room. So
It really does look like that.
we're going to be interrogating you, or you're interrogating us on our choices. So, okay, Joe, where are we starting with?
Okay, well, Joe decided, or thought it'd be a good idea to do a podcast. And we haven't done one actually for God knows how long now. So I like that idea, and then to discuss really the top 50 albums of the year and the reissues. And we've done things differently in the issue, which by the time we put this out, people will have seen. We've done an end of year issue, which we've never done before, where we look at 2025 and we celebrate what happened, and we look ahead to with some of the biggest names in prog as well. David Gilmour, Rush, Marillion, yes. Stephen Wilson, so that was fun putting that together for the first time. I hope the readers enjoy it. But what we also decided to do was, because you have to paginate an issue like that differently to a normal issue, going through the issue and how we used to do things, where we present a top 20 albums and then you'd have lists, about 8 pages almost of lists of people's individual 20s. And I know people like to read that, but it seemed like dead copy to me, and where you're trying to maximize what you can get into the pages you have available. I thought it would be a lot better to give more space to more albums and to do a top 50. It just seemed a lot more definitive. And I think overall it's far better. It looks far better, I think, on the page, to have this great spread of 50 albums, 50 great albums that the writers think are great. And obviously the disparity comes when the readers get their teeth into it, and there's a lot of noise on social media, and we're used to that now. But I think there are a lot of reasons that some people can get a bit upset that their favorite albums haven't either made the list or aren't as high as they want them to be. And there's a lot of reasons that there sort of seems to be disparity between what the critics will choose and what the fans will choose. A lot of noise comes from prog groups that really sort of center on the specific sound or style of that music. And the magazine's always taken a much broader view of progressive music. We see prog as an abbreviation of progressive, and progressive is a very, very wide umbrella. So you have a far bigger sort of scope of records probably up for grabs. It's basically anything that's not a compilation or a live album that was reviewed in prog is fair game. So it can get voted in. There's also, I suppose, a wider age gap. Probably between the people that work on the magazine and some of the people that make the noise online. We do have quite a lot of younger writers, which I think is great for it presenting the scene as it is today. That we do have that age gap, but the younger people bring in a different sort of style of music. What appeals to them isn't going to appeal to maybe your 40, 50 or 60-year-old reader. And like I say, the noise comes from different groups, and some of those groups like maybe a specific band, they like a specific style of progressive music, and that's again why you have these sort of this sort of disparity, I suppose is the best word. On top of that, I think the critics probably have a slightly broader scope of musical taste. I mean, worked with you guys for so long now. One of the great things about working on a music magazine is people's musical interests stretch far and wide, and therefore that brings in things a little further afield. But then you've got to take into account what they've had access to. Not everybody gets sent everything. Not every band is as PR minded to make certain that people are getting to hear their music. Some literally just can't afford to do that, perhaps, to be sending out a load of CDRs. I mean, electronic links probably don't cost anywhere near as much, but do they have the grasp of the way the industry works with these things? So it's access as well. And you've got to remember that the readers actively are deliberately seeking out this music, whereas the writers, it tends to come to them. Although, I mean, I know we all buy music as well from the progressive field, but we are in a slightly privileged position that we get sent a lot of this stuff. So if you haven't heard something because a band either hasn't the awareness, hasn't the time, don't have the facilities to get their music out to a lot of people, then just not going to have heard that record. And often some of those records are the ones that are beloved by a section of the readership and don't get much love, or don't seem to get much love from the critics because of those very reasons. So those are, some of the reasons I think why, you get some people could have a moan, some people enjoy the difference, but these are sort of like the reasons why you often see a different list appearing when we do the readers poll, which will be in the next issue. But the critics' choice, and that there are these differences. I mean, obviously, you're always going to get somebody that goes, "I've never heard of any of these bands," and it's like, well, open your ears. And and then another time-honored one is it's all heavy metal. Well, it's patently not. But those are the reasons I think. One of the reasons we're doing this really is sort of to explain that to people who might not actually realise.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Jerry, as well, that we don't all get sent the same stuff. And also, We're actively seeking out things that we're interested in ourselves, in our specialist fields. I do the experimental column, so I'm geared towards that a little bit. Some of that was in my top 20. But, and Julian's got a slightly different slant as well, because he's garage rock and roller and psychedelia and all that. And Russ just likes absolutely everything.
I'm easy to please.
But so what happens is we do our 20 and we also do that. They did that this year for reissues, and we send it to Jerry, and Jerry sits and has to tick it all off and put the whole thing, the Matrix. Jerry's the Matrix. What's that like, Jerry?
It can be daunting. It was nowhere near as bad as the readers poll used to be, but we now do that. We've now actually got the software on the readers poll to actually collate that electronically. So, I think actually you're so embroiled in working on the issue, and you've got those deadlines looming, that you just get on with it. But one thing I really find it fascinating is you watch things move around, and the way it works is you get 20 points for getting a number one spot, all the way down to 1 point for getting 20, and then there's enormous amounts of paper because it's easier to do that than type up. And you can see, sometimes it starts off and you think, I wasn't expecting to see that band doing so well, and then they don't even make the overall list because it just tails off. And there are always, I think, the top 5 every year. You can see that taking shape very early on and staying that way. Sometimes it's neck and neck. We've had a couple of years where there's been like 1 or 2 votes that can split it. This year, I think the winner was considerably further ahead than most people. But yeah, it's fascinating. It is hard work, but it's like anything on a magazine with a deadline, it's got to be done. So you get down, you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So do we want to kick off with reissues? Because reissues has been bumper this year, hasn't it?
And there's a reason we want to kick off with reissues, Joe, and it is.
Is it because of David Gilmour?
Well, because yes, anybody. I mean, we're obviously recording this before Christmas, so currently on social media, everywhere is photos of Mr. Gilmour with a celebratory glass of champagne, looking very happy, I have to say, because "Wish You Were Here" is the Christmas #1 album, 50 years after it was first. Was it a #1 back in?
It was. It's been back the #1 back in the day, yeah. But
so I mean, terrific. I mean, some people might go, "Oh, it's rinsing the cash cow." I prefer to look at it and say this is testament to great music standing the test of time. Progressive rock music. A terrific feat. Let's not forget, because this always crops up at Christmas time, that we went from the 70s, for many people, the golden era of progressive rock, into the 80s, which was a challenging but equally interesting era for the music, I think. And the band that ended the decade of the 70s at #1 with the album and the single and began a new decade at #1 was Pink Floyd with The Wall and Another Brick in the Wall, part 2.
There you go. And that's how I got into Pink Floyd with The Wall, but concurrently with Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Weird story.
Yeah. I mean, you see, The Wall is my favourite album. I'm also a massive Piper fan as well. But I think we're all of a slightly similar age, and there's a reason for The Wall. Scott Rowley, who's our boss at Future Publishing in terms of magazines, used to edit classic rock. Now has a wider role looking after prog and classic rock and Metal Hammer. He's quite he likes quite sort of punk rock sort of music and garage stuff and things like that. But he likes The Wall. And I remember we'd been to see Roger Waters do it the night that David Gilmour got up on stage at the O2 to play Comfortably Numb. And we were talking on the way out. And then he said I was sort of 15, 16, and I was an angry teenager, and those themes of alienation actually resonated with me. And we're all sort of in a similar age bracket. It's exactly the same for me.
Yeah, exactly. So should we go through what our personal year was? Yeah, should we start with Julian then?
Oh, God. Well, my personal favourite on the reissue front was Hawkwind's Hall of the Mountain Grill. Long been my favourite Hawkwind album, and I've been looking forward to. I'm not one of these people who get really sort of precious about remixes or albums being touched up. I mean, I'm a big fan of what Steve Wilson does. Obviously, it's Stephen Taylor who did this one. And I just think it's absolutely the original album sounds magic. It's got a real sort of sparkle to it. It's basically like giving Sistine Chapel a spring clean, if you like. Gets a bit dusty up the top. You have to climb up the ladder, give it a bit of polish, get the colours back up there, which I think he's done. But for me, the real meat is the live stuff, which has come out here. I mean, the American shows are just absolutely outstanding on this, and it's one of those albums where it's worth taking a time out, take an afternoon out, make sure you got the place to yourself, just whack it on, turn the volume up, and just bathe in it. It's fantastic. It's really good.
Yeah,
that's my favourite.
That is, I think, why that is the perfect encapsulation, I think, Julian, of these box sets and how you really need to invest some time in them. All too often, I think people might get them, take out the actual record, which of course they've heard countless times, play that, and then put it up on the wall. But it's the investigation. I like you. I mean, I'm a big fan of Hall of the Mountain Grill. It's up there with Warrior on the Edge of Time as one of my favourite Hawkwind albums. I think Stephen Taylor is sort of pushing himself up there behind Wilson now as a man. I mean, he's worked on a lot of these records back in the day, and now he's coming back to them. Obviously Stephen Wilson's got the jump on everybody, but I like what Stephen Taylor's doing with a lot of stuff in the prog world.
Well, I interviewed Stephen Taylor a few years ago for the magazine, and we sort of talked about this. And his his view on this was that it's not about giving it a complete remix. It's about sort of giving it, like I said earlier, but it's like a sort of polish for the contemporary age and the equipment which is available now, which people listen through to music. So what he's doing is really just sort of bringing it up to speed to where we are right now. And I think he's doing a fantastic job.
Yes, I agree. I mean, and that is a very similar approach to the one that Wilson takes.
So that's the way to do it. I mean, there is, you've got to have that element of reverence about it. You're not going to be sort of mucking about with something which is like, an text, if you like, of the genre or of that particular sort of section of the genre. But to sort of polish it up, spruce it up, and just make it, anything that also, if it attracts new listeners in as well, I think is a good thing as well.
Yeah. Did you think you might have listened to quite a few things that came through on the reissues as well, Julian and Jerry? Yeah. Ross doesn't get to hear so much stuff, unfortunately. But some of the mixes that have come through, very sympathetic to the material, but giving it something extra. And I wanted to follow that up actually with the King Crimson reissues. Just to blow my own trumpet for a second, I did a listening party for Lizard, and we listened to Stephen Wilson's 2025 stereo remix, and it was really, really fantastic. And we had a kind of testify moment from Brian Gunn from Griffin, who stood up to say, yes, Jerry, he stood up to say, I've been listening to the original of this, and it's been a little arduous, but this has brought out so much detail. And I think that's also part of it. What is it bringing to it? It's obviously, some people might, it's a bit of marketing, like Atmos. Is this just a piece of marketing, or is it actually doing something genuine and wonderful for the audio experience?
I've sat in enough Atmos studios and heard enough Atmos mixes now to know that it does. But of course, the thing that comes with that is who's got an Atmos player at home, or who's got the system that can, spatial audio is slightly different. But to hear stuff in that on headphones,
it translates to just general headphones, though. So that's why Atmos is supposedly better than having your phone.
I haven't upgraded my sound bar that I will listen to Blu-rays. And I can listen to CDs on it as well. It breaks it down and then tries to get as close to Atmos as you can. Next time I get one, I will get one that is Atmos. But you can hear it. You can hear it. And not everyone gets it right, but a lot of the time, guys like Taylor and Wilson know what they're doing.
Yeah, for sure. Russ, did you get to hear any reissues this year?
A few. I don't get the box sets as much, but my favourite was Cardiac's second album, the On Land and in the Sea. So always good, because it's well, that's the point, isn't it, about Cardiac's? I got into them on CD, as it were, and never got the albums. And then, sure enough, what their best album, I think, On Land and in the Sea, though I quite like their new one, is hard to find, even in all the record stores I go into down by the coast here. But this is remastered, so it's quite good hearing a clarity to all the jumble.
Yeah, that's right, because it's quite chaotic. God,
I mean, that's where I think bands like the Carjacks, because it's quite busy and things like. I really like that sort of music. It helps me concentrate when I'm doing the magazine, actually. And
that was remastered. That was redone at Abbey Road, I think. They gave it a proper sort of like...
Yeah, which is amazing that Cardiacs get... I mean, I know Abbey Road is historic, isn't it? But they'll do the band like Cardiacs. It's nice that to honour the memory of Tim and that. People are really getting into them and they're being treated seriously, but you need to really like them to put up with the xylophones and speaks and things. But yeah, no, that was for me. That's my favourite of the year.
I mean, there was also a lot of love for the new album, not just from prog readers, but out there in the prog community online, you could see as well, which I thought was fantastic to see. I mean, there are probably people who are watching this who may have even booed the band when they supported Marillion back in the 80s. I mean, because it wasn't what they wanted to hear, but there were thematic links, you know. I mean, whoever put those two bands together, of course they don't sound like each other, but that's not the point, is it?
Mm.
You know, it was like, actually, there's a lot more going on in what the Cardiacs do that you will probably like, but you didn't, because you took one look at them and decided that they weren't anything to do with you back in the day.
Ish had to come out and defend them, didn't he? He had to. He
Yeah.
shouted at the audience to say, "What do you
Yeah.
do?" Because I think he was a huge fan as well.
But I remember seeing Marillion in the 80s with Peter Hamill supporting, and he didn't exactly get an easy ride. This is like the bloody Peter Hamill. You know, today, the kind of revered prog father up there with Gabriel as this sort of like, you know, enigmatic visionary of prog. And
getting rotten tomatoes thrown at him.
So, you know.
Okay, Jerry, what was your top reissue this year then?
Mine was Genesis. Now, I mean, having edited Prog Magazine for almost 20 years now, because you were there with me at the beginning, Joe. You were, you know.
Well, Joe, built Stonehenge, yeah.
For people that don't know, Joe and I had never met each other until
unbelievably
getting set up, and it was basically I was in the future publishing offices, and they went, "This is your production girl." Well, swiftly became my right hand woman and deputy editor. You know, but we never met, have we?
She aged a lot then in a short while. First she was the girl, then she became the woman.
Yeah. This is what Prog does to you, Russ.
Having worked on the mag for that long, this box set has been floating around almost as long. I know two people that have collectively worked on it for 20 years. One an 11-year stint, one a 9-year stint. It was supposed to come out for the 40th anniversary, then it got shelved. Finally seen the light of day. And yeah, I'm one of these Genesis fans who don't look at the Lamb and go, it's the be all and end all. You know, I mean, I'm like, some of it, so side 4 could be a struggle.
Right, I wanted to talk to you about that because we were in the Atmos mix in the Dolby Theatre. And this is the first time that I'd listened to it in its entirety because I tried to take it down. I borrowed this from my local library about 20 years ago. When I used to be an indie DJ, I used to always be crate digging and looking for grooves. And I thought, there's got to be some grooves on this. I didn't find any. I was fast forwarding going, there's got to be something. It's the era. And then it's like, so I actually hadn't listened to it in its entirety. So my first time listening to it in its entirety was at the Atmos presentation at the Dudley Theatre.
Yeah.
And I remember
a bum-numbing experience, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, of course, the band were there as well. So Alexis didn't.
They didn't sit through and listen to it all. I mean, they came in, did their spiel, buggered off.
But it was
actually Hackett did, didn't he? Steve did.
He did. Steve was at the front. That's right.
Steve sat and listened to it all. But Tony, Mike, and Peter, they were. Well, obviously, I mean, and obviously Tony and Mike. Tony and Peter had worked on the Atmos mix anyway. So, which you know, that added a few more extra days onto the delay.
So who was the first member to actually sort of get up from their seat and, you know, anyone fancy a pint and off they went?
No, it wasn't like that. They got brought in for a Q&A with Alexis Petridis, who writes for The Guardian, and who had collated an excellent book that comes with it. Often, you know, the music is the core, but the peripherals sometimes are really good fun with these box sets. Not all the time. You know, I mean, I actually quite like the Pink Floyd immersion sets, but you know, then you get some people who are you know, look at life through less amused glasses, shall we say, and they're like, why do I have this rubbish? I don't need it. And it's like, okay, well, you know, each their own. But Alexis's book that comes with the Lamb, I think is great because he allows Genesis to tell the story in their own words. But he's clearly, you know, there's a really good interviewing job going on there as well. But yeah, so Genesis were brought in, or obviously not Phil, he was in Switzerland. Were ushered in to much applause. And then, they took questions from Alexis. I think did they take any from the floor?
They did, because
You have to be careful with that, though, because it can be.
I think they were vetted, but Alexis said, "Oh, a fan asked," and it was Daryl Easley.
Daryl, who writes for Prog and who sat next to me.
Wrote the Peter Gabriel book, etc., etc.
Yeah, Daryl sat next to me, dancing all the way through 4 sides of vinyl in his chair. I was like, "Will you stop moving?" All right, because I was stuck at the back. So I noticed that some of our journalistic colleagues made a bolt for it between sides 2 and 3, and we're all stood in the bar laughing heartily when people kind of fell out of the studio going, "What day is it?"
I stayed for the long haul. I got the poster at the end, and I was really happy. I was so happy that I was like totally.
I've got that. They very kindly gave us all the classic shot. I think it's of Headley Grange. Russ, you'll know it. Them the band
out in the garden near the tree or inside.
No, there's that sort of house behind them. It's the same session.
Headley Grange.
Yeah. So we all got given a very nice big sort of that size, black and white of Genesis, which was very nice.
Well, you don't need that then, because you're not art, are you? So just give it to the art department.
I can get it framed though.
Yeah, that's true. Russ, I've got a spare one because I picked up a few because there were more than. So if anybody wants one, let me know. Julian, Russ.
I don't know if it would go with the decor there in your room, Russ.
It'll be the decor.
Come on, Joe. What was your favourite?
Well, I loved Pentangle, and Spark did a beautiful album set, vinyl album set. So they just really luxuriated in that. And Pentangle, we've just had quite a sad time with Danny Thompson dying. And I again, blowing my own trumpet, I did a listening party for Solomon Seal with Jackie McShee, and it actually turned into something quite emotional because Bert's gone, John's gone. Obviously, she was very close. It sounds like they got on really, really well, all of them. Danny had gone just a couple of weeks before this, and Terry Cox is in a nursing home. And you hadn't listened to this album, to Solomon Seal, for about 40 years, and she was suddenly in a room with a bunch of people, and we were all really, really loving it. There was applause after every track, which you don't normally get. And it was emotional. She got emotional, and we all got a little bit emotional because sometimes you kind of go, "Oh, this is fun, isn't it? We'll sit in a room with the artist who's made this record," and then before you know it, you're digging around in their pain or their memories as well.
Very interesting you say that. I remember Stephen Wilson will repeat this story. I remember him telling me at the time when he first started working on King Crimson's reissues. He's like a kid in a candy store, and he sat in the studio with Fripp, and Fripp isn't, and he couldn't. And then he kind of realised that Fripp is reliving what happened at the time, and not all of it was good.
Yeah,
and it brings those memories back.
He had that
to the artist.
At our Lizard party, actually, with Peter Giles had said, because it was very good, it was quite jolly, quite light-hearted, and I did throw it to Peter because he was at the tail end.
Like the album.
Yeah, yeah, like a frisbee. But he was in the wake of Poseidon, and then he was off because he was doing other things, learning how to be electronics engineer and getting into computing and things like that. But he did confide to Sid. He got up on Sid's lap actually on stage. There are photos. It was a bit got gear, and he said, "This is evoking memories," and he was very kind of like, "This is evoking memories" type of thing. Taking to a time.
It does. I mean, I think it's great these listening parties you're doing, and really interesting choices. I love Jackie McShee. She's a delight.
Oh, she's a good woman.
Yeah, and I adore Pentangle. That box set is great. I've got the CD version that came out through Cherry Red probably 10 years ago, but Svart, the Scandinavian label, got the rights and really went to town in terms of these really good and extra tracks, which is something you don't often get on the vinyl.
No, well, logistical reasons, there's only so much you can fit on
Yep.
vinyl and things as well. So that was my top one. Jerry, do you want to run through what the scores on
Well,
the issues?
I was going to say, obviously, I come out top here because Genesis were the reissue of the year, voted for by the prog writers. Then I think we've got you, Joe, because Pentangle put in a brilliant showing, coming in at 6. The album's 68 to 72. 2 down, Julian Hawkwind at number 8 for All of the Mountain Grill. And Russ, you are the dud because Cardiacs didn't even make the top 50
Unbelievable.
reissues.
Call yourselves
They
journalists.
were in my top 20 though, Russ. So
Yeah.
It's
be duds
interesting. I mean, the top 5. I'll just do the top 5. So Genesis at 1 with The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway's 50th anniversary super deluxe edition. Number 2, yes, Close to the Edge super deluxe edition. I mean, those two were battling it out all the way. At 3, Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here 50 at number 1 as we speak. 4, Rush, the 50 box set, which I can tell you, be careful lifting. You'll do your back. And at number 5, Tangerine Dreams, Phaedra 50th anniversary box set. So they were the top 5. 20. There were some interesting choices, though. XTC's Drums and Wires fared very, very well, as did Faust's debut album. And of the King Crimson reissues this year, I was a bit surprised to see Lizard Pip in the Wake of Poseidon, but it did. It resides at number 14. So we won't go the whole list, I don't think.
What's interesting about those as well is having David Singleton's Elemental mixes, which they're stripped right back, and you can hear before anything else has happened to them. You hear those. That's really, I quite like some of those as well. So adding something else to the catalogue, and of course we've got a couple of things that are in there. Supertramp, and we had our Supertramp cover because of the sad passing of Rick Davies this year. But it's concurrently, this catalogue reissue plan was already happening because I think we always did much more on Supertramp.
So interesting. Well, before we move on to the main albums, Joe, because we just mentioned your listening parties, what have you got any planned for early 2026?
Well, what I have got is I've just put in a pencil for May, which will be In the Wake of Poseidon.
Right.
Yeah. So that will be probably the same place, Water Rats, where we did Blizzard. And because we ended up with our party having Peter there, David Cross was there, Jacko was there, and also Jeremy Stacey. And when I asked the room, I said, has anyone not heard Lizard before? David Cross put his hand up. It's like, this is good. And also some of David Cross's band, Sheila had heard it. Sheila was there. But Mick Paul, he was there. He's like, I've never heard it. So it's kind of like, this is really great. Jeremy came with his brother Paul, and I'd seen Paul actually at the Pink Floyd Atmos event because he's working with Noel Gallagher, and Noel is a big fan of the album, and so they came along together. So it's a really nice interesting mix of people, and hopefully we'll in these listening parties there are even some women there. Can you believe it? Actually, Yasmin Giles came along and baked some lizard mince pies. It had a little lizard design on it with real lizard in.
Fantastic.
But yeah, so In the Wake of Poseidon, we want to do a nice deep dive on that. And with Sid's a brilliant storyteller. He knows everything about Green.
Yes.
And clearly he and Peter get on really well. So we'll have a bit of that, and then we'll see what else comes up. I mean, I'm interested in staying with prog really, because I think that it's still largely underserved in this way, and there's clearly a small but enthusiastic audience, and I thank everybody who's been in touch with me and who's come along and who's been interested. I had a slightly different audience for Pentangle than I did with Crimson, but they're all going on the same mailing list, so just keep your eye open for stuff like this. And Jerry, I'd love all of you to come and do
Yeah.
We'll have a great big prog listening party.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I
hopefully.
look forward to the Argus one.
Yeah, come
Hey,
on.
Jerry?
Well, I actually like Argus, so
Yes, I know.
if anyone is watching this and hasn't even heard of Joe's or Joe and Mike Barnes, who also writes for Prog, their listening parties, we'll promote them through Prog socials, or Joe's very active in the Prog community, on social media as well. Joe Kendall, like I said, or just keep an eye on Prog's website and socials, because we'll give them a push.
I just wanted to say, it was while I was at the last Lizard at the Lizard listening party. I had two of the audience members came up to me and said, "What happened to the podcast and when's it coming back?" And I said, "Watch this space."
So I tell you, I mean, it's down to resources, time, and what is available to you, and to do this kind of well, you need some sort of budget, and those budgets just keep on getting smaller. I think there is a podcast studio at Future, but trying to get access to it isn't easy, because we have things like TV Times and Women's Weekly, and we have do we have Horse and Hound? We have those kind of.
I'm loving all these partnerships that you're promoting.
Yeah,
you could get in with Women's Weekly.
I don't think they know Prog exists.
I'm a woman. I can write weekly.
And it would be lovely, and in some ways we should be doing it, but it's just trying to find the time. I mean, all magazine teams have been pared back to about the minimum that they can operate on. And trying to find time beyond putting the magazine together is not an easy task these days, unfortunately. So that, is a sort of brief explanation of why you don't get as many of these things from us these days.
But we're going to try our best anyway. So
when I should say, Joe, when you and I were doing these, we would go to the studios in Charlotte Street, who gave us a very good deal, but that money ultimately was needed elsewhere.
Yeah, that's right. My sandwich habit. Anyway, should we get on to our new albums then?
Big one then.
Yeah.
The top 50 albums of the year. I mean, it'd be interesting to see how. I'd like to think. We always thought when we put Prog Magazine together that because the music often operated in long form, that people would want. At the time there was this idea that people. And I suppose we've seen it really with attention span deficits, getting worse over the years. But prog fans probably wanted to read more about their favourite music, so we went the other way, and it was our features going to be longer. Our album reviews are going to be longer. But that didn't help, because obviously Metal Hammer and Classic Rock worked to a sort of a format for their reviews, and then we came in and went, nah. No, ours is going to be longer than that, so it's not going to fit that. And oh no, we're not going to give marks, because we were under the. I still think a lot of the time people will look at the mark, look at the précis line, and then don't bother reading the review. And we know.
I always read the 1-star reviews just to see what that's.
Oh yeah. So, but we know, just through our interaction with the readers on social media, that they do want to read this stuff. So I'm hoping that people are happier that we've done 50 albums of the year, because obviously it gives more bands, it gets more bands in, basically, that might have just ended up in a list that people can see. And of course, I'm sure you're going to have people that loved to read the individual lists from everybody. But I genuinely think that Space was better served to do a top 50.
Yeah, well, we haven't seen it yet, and I think it's going. I think there's features that are within the album breakdown, isn't there? So I'm looking forward to reading these.
There's features around it. We didn't copy what Classic Rock and Metal Hammer do. if you're doing an end of year issue, there's kind of a format that you kind of need to adhere to, but we tried to do it slightly differently, give a broader scope of bands and stuff. But there's some interesting, there's some, you know, there's some interesting stuff said in this issue, and you know, if you're a fan of Marillion and Stephen Wilson and David Gilmour and Rush and Yes, then there's some exciting news for all of you. In fact, well, and beyond, because I mean, Julian was tasked with donning his Mystic Meg outfit and scrying into his crystal ball to discover what's going to happen next year across the board. So there's a kind of quite a big preview of what's coming up in 2026 as well. Plenty.
If I just interrupt you there again, yeah, about sort of spoilers and the rest of it. But the thing about putting that together, which really stood out, is really how much is actually going to be going on next year. I mean, for all that you read about the woes of the music industry, and certainly when you're drilling down into sort of smaller levels within genres and stuff, but it's really looking really healthy and plenty to look forward to next year. And I think that was the biggest surprise for me in putting that. That was my biggest takeaway of how healthy things are looking for next year.
Great stuff. I mean, you know, the more the merrier, and I hope that is good news for people that are watching.
Yeah, it means it's a signpost for the things that could be in the poll for next year for both the critics and for the fans as well. So
yeah.
Okay, Julian, what was your fave album of last year?
Well, my fave. Let me just get to my list. So that's the big list there. I'm just trying to find my personal list, which I've got here somewhere. Oh, blimey! Oh, here it is. No, there we are. Oh, sorry, of course, the overview. I mean, what am I looking for? Yeah, let's just see what my number two. Yeah, the overview. I mean, the overview just sort of. I mean, it was completely obvious from the moment we heard it. We went to a preview listening session of that. I think of October or November of 2024, and it was fantastic. I mean, we had this amazing surround sound experience.
But it was in Atmos.
It was an Atmos, and plus you had the 360-degree film as well that went with it.
It was at the L Acoustics Atmos studio, which is in Highgate in the old.
Yeah,
I think it's the old post office building, as in I think an old Royal Mail sorting office.
Yeah.
In Highgate, which has been taken over by these high-end audio people, because L Acoustics do live sound for the biggest artists. But this is a dedicated Atmos studio, so Wilson actually does go there and work. I've been fortunate enough. I used to live in Muswell Hill, so just down the road. So I got to know the people that operate that place, and they do a lot of Atmos playbacks there. So we've been fortunate enough to go to a lot. But yes, as Julian was saying, this was we got the album in Atmos.
Yeah, I mean, it was astonishing. You just knew
half of the movie because the other half wasn't finished.
Yeah.
So the movie for the part one, anyone listening to this that saw Wilson on tour, a lot of that stuff ended up as stuff behind the band while they were performing the overview.
Yeah, I mean, it was just evident as we were listening to it that you were listening to something great. And I'm sort of convinced it's the kind of thing that sort of transcends genre as well. It's such a huge piece of work that it's not going to be just sort of within the prog sphere. I think it's something that anybody could sort of dip into, and if it's, well, I say dip into, you have to immerse yourself into it. But it's very much sort of, if you want to know the state of prog at the moment or what this music is about, this is about as good a guide as you can get for right here, right now. And I remember sort of nudging Jerry, I think it was like during the second part, I just sort of nudged, I just said, this is a total trip, isn't it? This is just fantastic. It was an amazing experience. So I think for me, that's why it's my album of the year. I mean, it just encapsulates everything that prog is supposed to be about, but it's also sort of pushing, I think it's pushing the genre forward as well.
Very good.
And that's why it tops my list.
Yeah,
I agree completely with what Julian said there, and of course it topped my list as well. And for many of the reasons that Julian's explained, it was defiantly progressive, and in doing that, it appealed, I think, very much to the core heartland of prog, but it sounded incredibly modern. And I think if you were a young person that didn't know what progressive music was and you
Yeah.
heard that, it would have blown your mind. Now, it's very interesting that Julian's brought this up because actually in the issue, we've interviewed Stephen, and Dave Ling did the interview, and Lingy had asked Stephen what his favourite gigs of the tour was. And he goes, we've just done some shows in South America and Mexico. He goes, I have an audience that I expect to see in Europe and the UK. They're of an age. He goes, here, there were young kids. And that says to me, a lot of young people coming to these shows, and that says to me, this is not old man's music. This is music that transcends. And I completely agree with that. I go a bit beyond that. I was delighted when I went to see Porcupine Tree at Wembley on their most recent reunion tour at how young a lot of the audience were.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of people moaning about, it's just old man's music, which it isn't, because I think, and I think you'll probably agree with me, Joe, because it's something we keep our eye on. We've seen an upturn in the amount of women that go to prog shows in the last 20 years or so.
Definitely.
I think there's a very strong female, I don't want to say group, because you could kind of take you're sort of isolating them, and they're not, but there's a very strong female presence in the prog community, which I think is a great thing. We see young kids at gigs. The style of music that appeals to the younger person who might be getting into prog isn't always what the older people are into. So you do get a bit of a gulf. They'll go and see certain bands, and the slightly older crowd will go and see other sort of kinds of bands. And whilst there is some crossover, you don't get, But I think
perfect encapsulation of that. Sorry to interrupt, Jerry. I went to see Curved Air in Winchester with Alison Raymond, one of our other contributors, one of my pals, and the crowd was largely older, and some people, who had been fans since Curved Air started, but there were quite a lot of younger people. Very interested young lad near to us with a fluffy fringe, really interested in it. And there's a new, they've got a new violinist called Gregor. And Gregos is Polish, and he was doing Vivaldi, the most wonderful version of Vivaldi. Afterwards, I had to go up to him and say, this is brilliant. And I've been listening to a pop artist, a very strange pop artist, Rosalia, because she's done pop. Yeah, but this new stuff, got classical. It's a concept album. I'm going to pitch it to you, Julian, for its prog gym, actually. Concept album about saints. And it's got a lot of classical in it. She's got her usual sort of, because she's Spanish, so she's got that Spanish stuff going on as well. Anyway, I've been watching Berghain, the video to that, which has got this Vivaldi theme going through it. And I said to Gregor, are you familiar with that? And he went, I'm in the video. It was filmed in Poland because she's taken the video, and you will know this, Julian, from the 3 Colours Red, 3 Colours Blue. The producer, she's very interested in this director, so they went after that for this theme for her video. Do watch her video for Berghain. And he says, you can see my bald head all over it. And I went back and looked at it, and you can. But amazing. He's got to be in his 30s, and he is into this beautiful heritage band, Curved Air, which they did an absolutely stunning set. They are on fire, amazing. Sonia's not been too well. Sonia Christina, she's actually been in a hospital recently with cancer. She's back. But she's back. She's she's firing on as many cylinders as she has now, and her band are the wind beneath her wings, and he is a big part of it.
I saw them at the 100 Club probably in 2024, and it was great. I mean, it was just like, wow, they're still rocking, and I thought that was good. It's interesting that you say about what we just this thing we're discussing in age. I've reviewed Gong in the new issue of Prog, the same issue with all the albums of the year lists in it, and I saw him at the Piper in St Leonard's, and behind me, I heard this voice say, and I kind of looked over my shoulder, and it was obviously a father and the son's girlfriend. And I heard tell him say, "Yes, you two will probably be the youngest people in here," which kind of made me laugh. This is before the band came on, and then I started looking around at the audience, and I'm like, well, actually, I mean, yes, of course, there are enough bald heads and grey hair on display, but look closer. No, they're young. They're young. There's a lot of women here. It's not just men of a certain age.
Yeah, I think we are
You know,
seeing it's changing in these.
and
That's the band message.
brilliantly, later on, towards the end of the set, I looked over and this young couple were just absolutely entranced, swaying to the music, and that was great to see. But so going back to the Wilson thing, yes, I think this still is music that transcends. I should point out before we go any further, I suspect that Wilson wouldn't be your number one, Joe, and we know it's not Russell's because you already told us what he is. Obviously,
He's my number one.
Stephen has his detractors within the prog world, possibly because he's so successful. Sometimes he deliberately likes to wind people up, and we do take a lot of flack from certain people who just like Wilson. He's in every issue. Well, obviously, he's patently not in every issue. But, people actually will say this. They will accuse us online of putting him in every issue of the magazine. And we don't. But he's also probably the biggest artist, modern artist, making music of this style. If we write and report on that music, of course we are going to report on some of the biggest and most popular artists, because we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't.
He's all over, very respectfully. He's all over the genre, and he's really helping it thrive and grow. So I've got nothing against it. He wasn't my top choice, although he was in my top 20. Russ, what was your number one?
My number one was Stephen Wilson.
Was it? I thought it was Cardiac.
No, that's the reissues. Come on, pay attention to your own podcast.
Yeah, but you also mentioned LSD, so I thought you were saying that had been your number one.
Oh no, that they were my number.
You've forgotten what you were saying already.
No, Cardiacs was the reissue because that was on Land and in the Sea, and so yeah, LSD made number 6 for me. But Stephen Wilson, I mean, on that same listening thing,
it's higher for me.
My favourite, I love Echoes by Pink Floyd from the Medal album, and it reminded me of that, and also Tangerine Dream elements of the overview. So that really caught me. And I'd just like to say that for once, my top 20 in the top 6, 5 of them made the top critics list. So that's a new one for me, because normally I have the outliers. You know, the us, them and you section in the magazine that we have on the comp page where we choose a thing and listen. I always thought when that began, great, that means when the top 20 list we have to do every year comes out, I've got 10, 11 already I'll put in there. Hardly any of the ones I put on that page ever get reviewed. And the only one that did is called Diminished Quartet, an Iranian avant-garde jazz prog band that I saw at Moon Dune Festival in September 24. And luckily this year, Sid Smith had a review of it in his column, so I was able at last to get at least one of the albums I like.
I should say our reviews editor Dave Everly isn't here today, so he can't answer your charge.
So I was pleased about that as well.
So,
Joe, come on.
Well, no, I was just going to say about Stephen Wilson. Let's go on a bit more about Stephen Wilson. So we went to the show at the Palladium in May, and actually, Russ, at the time, you didn't think you were going to be going, but you did get to go, didn't you?
I got to go, yeah.
And were you on the sort of, what's it called, the dress circle, middle level? Because I think that was
no. I was underneath that on the seats on the ground. So
I had such a brilliant view. I saw the film, the stage. It just looked and sounded amazing, totally immersive. I absolutely loved it. I haven't really loved all of Stephen's work, but I think this is the toppermost of the poppermost that he's done. It's just, I like it having two halves. I like the immersive visuals as well. Sounded great, conveyed a lot of emotion as well for me. I just thought it was superb. So I really, really enjoyed it, but it didn't quite make it to the top. But Russ, did you enjoy that show?
Very much so. Because I mean, and that's the other thing we were talking about. He's unrepentant in his progginess, in the sense that he did the whole album up front. You know, none of this.
Here you go. Here's a new record.
He's not to get you in first with a couple of the oldies, as it were, just to get you interested in the music, and then say, oh no, we're just going to do. Well, he might have said we'll just do a couple of tracks off the new album.
Here's one from the new album.
I remember, like in the early days, Haken, when they had Visions, the album out, and the song Visions, they go about half hour ago, got time for one song then. So it's quite like that. He'll play the whole album two songs. So that was brilliant. Yeah. I wish I'd gone on the night Stuart Lee was the support. But Frank Skinner did all right. But he found the only person. I thought Frank, the only person who didn't laugh at a joke.
It's true. I mean, I was at the night that Frank went, and like many comedians, he walked on stage and he'll engage with somebody in the front row.
Yeah.
And the guy he chose clearly was of the idea that a progressive rock show was no time for levity, right? And this guy was clearly like at the front. And he kept on coming back, and this guy wasn't having any of it. And it was, I kind of even starting to feel for Frank. So then he tried on the partner, and she was as cheery as apparently. And it was just, it was like, of all the people you could pick in an audience, you have to find the most dour. I don't find any of this funny. I'm only here for progressive rock.
I like Frank bemoaning the state of his career. There he was supporting someone who hasn't even had a #1 in the charts.
He did, that was funny, where he obviously alluded to the fact that the football song he did with David Baddiel has been #1. I thought there was some very good jokes. If you think that's indulgent, wait till later on. That was.
I went to the night that it was Al Murray, and Al Murray obviously is a proggy person. He's been in the pages of prog in record.
He hosted the Prog Awards, the last Prog Awards.
Yeah.
He hosted the Prog Awards, and Russ and I have been round his house to do that feature, which was great, chatting to him about, he was putting the case for Elvis being prog because he wore a cape at the very least, but he also arranged, but he also, took apart and rearranged all of his music, and was this kind of incredible visionary sort of MD, musical director, by the end of it as well. But he helped me get over my barrier with Genesis as well. The 20 years back with trying to find the groove in The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, and then making baby steps towards it. Because my era, as you know, Jerry, because I'm a young person, my first stadium gig was the Invisible Touch tour at Wembley. And I was down with that stuff. So Al helped me bridge this gap by saying, well, they always loved The Who. And once I heard The Who in Genesis, I was getting into Genesis. I hear The Who, I hear the rock opera, the Tommy, the quick one, and also we make parallels between there being Rail in, Pete Townsend character, and then Rail is in a Lamb.
Townsend's come out. He's been quoted as saying that he thought he was very instrumental in the development of prog. Probably didn't get quite as an enthusiastic response from some areas of the prog community. And whilst I don't particularly agree exactly with what he said, there's I mean, without a doubt, Quadrophenia. I mean, it might be about mods, but music is prog.
Yeah.
Concept album and proggy, of course, absolutely. So you keep mentioning Cardiacs, and that was my #1 album.
You do surprise me.
What a return! What an amazing return!
It was,
and they've felt such a lot of love around this. It's been arduous and painful and emotional for them because of their guiding light, Tim Smith, becoming ill, having that terrible sort of stroke, and then living with sort of being non-verbal, immobile, but still able to communicate through an alphabet board. and having this music that they'd started to create, and they wondered if it was ever going to get finished. Well, they did. You know, Carver Starabi and Craig Fortnum did finish it with Jim Smith, Tim's brother, and lots and lots of love, lots of augmentation. You know, we've got Mike Vennett, who's the front man now, and he adds so much to it. We love Mike anyway.
Yeah.
And he's got lots of irons in different fires. He's playing with Biffy. He's got Empire State Bastard. He's hats off to the Oceanside reissue as well, that came out this year with extra stuff. And Rose Kemp was mooted to be the main singer at the time. That this is Maddie Pryor and Rick Kemp's daughter. She is on it, but they did this amazing balance. So that's it. Carjacks is an interesting thing for its male-female mix as well, and that's, you can really hear the masculine and feminine going on with all the craziness. It is totally crammed full of so many ideas. And I got to hear, I don't know if anyone's reported this, the story of the front cover. It's got a kangaroo. Yeah, the kangaroo. So Tim and Carvis were in a pub near to where they were doing some recording, and the pub had this amazing artwork, all this like weird artwork everywhere. And Tim saw this thing that's just a kangaroo framed. It's like, it's just sort of, it's got this lovely border and stuff on it. He went, I'm going to use that as a sleeve one day. And this is that day.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
So hats to Cardiacs, you know, tremendous effort.
A lot of love from across the board with the prog writers for that. The top 3 albums in the 50 swiftly established themselves as you know, it's going to be between these 3.
Go on,
well, yeah, I mean, you know, because by the time we put this out, you know, people will have commented on social media. I mean, I already am seeing posts from people going, "Oh, have Prog done their albums of the year?" Well, we always do it we have that issue that's out actually at the end of the year, so that's for us. I know Classic Rock and Metal Hammer's end of year issues land in November. Well, we really are doing it at the end of year, and then the first issue of the new year, which is out in February, has the readers' poll results. So you have the 2. So people are going to know. So the Stephen Wilson's The Overview is the album of the year for prog readers. So, you know, I can hear people cheering and gnashing their teeth in equal measure.
But I think what's interesting with Cardiacs as well, it's like Stephen Wilson. It's another album that just sort of transcends genre. This isn't just going to be sort of contained within prog. This is something that's sort of reaching out, and I think you can sort of see that with the other sort of media coverage that they've had over the year as well. And it's interesting that we're at that point where the top 2 albums definitely are sort of, you know, branching out.
Yeah. So Cardiacs LSD at number 2. At number 3, Solstice with Clan, which is terrific, and I think, you know, just it carries on. They've just had an amazing couple of years, haven't they? It was well deserved. You know, there's just you think of Solstice now and you think Smiles.
Yeah.
You know, I'd give the top 5. Dream Theater, this return with Parasomnia came in at number 4, and IQ's Dominion at number 5. So that was they're the top 5. Let's quickly talk. I know we're running out of time, but let's just quickly talk. Joe, let's start with you. What surprised you about the list, if anything?
Oh, well, yeah, metal. And a large dose of it as well. And also those late runners and riders, you mentioned a couple of them like Anna von Hauswolf, because these things, we have to put our list together, you know, sort of like, again, beginning of November. So you hope you've mocked everything up. And then there's always something that comes out. You go, oh, I wish I'd done that. But she's great. So Anna's there. But metal, Ginger was something I pulled out. I am not allergic to prog metal. I love metal. I love metal stuff. But I'm just thinking, oh, I know something else. Oh my gosh, when I saw it, it was like, why didn't I put that in there? It's Gosta Berling Saga, because that's really great. But yeah, it was metal, Jerry. It's the metal. So tell us about the metal.
Well, I mean, you know, I don't think, right, there are some people who just go, it's all heavy metal. And I'd love to know universe they operate in. I don't think this is a particularly metal orientated list from us. I mean, there was noise this year. Some people got on their high horses about prog metal, and they didn't think it. They obviously don't like it, and they didn't want it to be any part of the prog scene. But I don't see how you do that. I mean, it is so inherently part of what progressive music is. You know, I mean, I'd like to think that we're above cancel culture for something, you know, that seems so fundamentally wrong. You know, I understand people don't like it or don't listen to it. But then the interesting thing was some of the people that appeared in the letters pages complaining about it was like, I like these bands, but I don't like these bands. It's like, oh, so you do like some prog metal, but you just object to us writing about the ones that you don't like. So, you know, there's a great quote from the bass player of Ginger when we did a piece on that highlighted Ginger, Blood Incantation, and Rivers of Nile largely as, look, there's something going on in heavy music that is inherently progressive. Now, yeah, it's not going to appeal to everybody. We understand that, but it still was an interesting point of what is going on and why is it going on. And the guy from Ginger went, we're a prog metal band. We deserve to be playing on prog metal bills around the country. We're not, because obviously people perceive them as coming from the metal world. But musically, it's really complex, intricate stuff. It's heavy, yes. And obviously Tatiana's vocals can be very extreme. And we are aware that a lot of the community can't handle that kind of vocal approach. But you see, this is where the younger people come in. They do. It doesn't bother them. And they do like it. So this is why, I mean, Ginger didn't actually, the metal that surprised me, Ginger was a pleasant surprise. I actually liked the band. It was Imperial Triumphant. Which is a very uncompromising record, very sort of avant-garde jazz noise and metal. You know, that I was surprised to see that in there. But going up the list, you know, I'm like, all right, Catatonia, but they're sort of, they're heavy, but they're sort of doom prog, as it were. Green Carnation, I've always said, if you know, to liken Green Carnation's sound, it's like if Rainbow Rising was a prog album, that's what Green Carnation sound like. That's not metal, you know. Dream Theater, Between the Buried and Me, but they're very popular, you know. And again, it's our younger readers that have bought that to the fore. That was very high with as we call them, the kids that write for the mag. You know, you know, your Phil Wellers, your Sherry Faulkners, your Matt Millses, you know, and it reaches, it's an echo of what I was saying before of why we have this sort of broad base, because every writer brings something slightly different, and we're not all, you know, thank God, as a team of contributors, we're not all the same age.
Yeah, but just on that point of you know, sort of mixing it up, I see that Gong are going out with Blood Incantation. So and Carvis is metal as well, because one of his favourite bands is flipping it, apart from Iron Maiden.
I mean, you know, like I said, having looked at this list, I don't think, I mean, there are, you know, there will be one or two that just go, well, it's all heavy metal. Right? Never heard of any of these bands, but you know, I don't think it is. The ones that, you know, like I said, I think maybe it's because Ginger and Imperial Triumphant are so uncompromising with their sound. You know, I'm surprised that Blood Incantation almost got in, but you know, it didn't. So I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot more, you know, heartland prog and left field prog than there is prog metal in the list.
Yeah, I think that there's some really some lovely some beautiful records in there as well. At the North Sea Radio Orchestra, absolutely stunning stuff. And King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard. I wish I'd been able to go to the Royal Albert Hall show where they had the orchestra there. I heard such good reports of that.
It's reviewed in this issue. David West went along, loved it.
Brilliant. Did you have any curveballs, Julian? What was your underdog this year?
My underdog, in terms of one that I voted for but didn't make the 50 list, I was really impressed by this band from Newcastle called Parastatic, which was forwarded to me right at the end of last year, and luckily there was a gap came up in the reviews. So I said, look, I'm absolutely loving this album, and it's a concept album. It's kind of sort of a cross between sort of post rock and sort of psychedelia, with this spoken word piece over it. They've got this Spanish poet, this lady, reciting stuff over urban regeneration as the concept there. But it's such an absolutely fantastic album. And I went to see them play live, I think it's last February or March, down at the Strong Room, down in the East London. And I just thought they were absolutely fantastic. So that was my curveball. It sort of just came out of nowhere, and I've just been really impressed with it. And I've actually continued listening to it throughout the year as well. There won't be a month that's gone by that's not come out. I heartily recommend it. It's great.
Very good. Ross, I mean, you're full of curveballs because you listen.
Yeah, my top 20 is curveballs. No, no, but what I was really pleased, I saw them last year just in Brighton, was Amplifier, and they've done really well in our top 50.
They have.
Gargantuan.
Yeah.
I mean, sells. It's the largest set of pedals on the stage I've ever seen. You know, not even the established guitarists like Gilmour have these amount of pedals. He's got
They've got their own postcode, haven't they?
a big L shape.
Russ, when we had when we did that prog gig, Jerry, at the Jazz Cafe, was it part of Desert Fest?
It was Desert Fest. I mean, for whatever it's perceived, there's always some prog adjacent or prog interest bands at Desert Fest. One year they did come to us and say, do you want to do a prog stage? And we did. So Amplifier, I Am the Morning, Messenger,
was it Sweet Billy Pilgrim as well?
Sweet Billy Pilgrim, and I can't remember who the other band were, but they all played.
But that was the first time I saw the biggest pedal board, like the sort of Vogon constructor fleet of pedal boards. And I went to the Sunflower Lounge in Birmingham to see Amplifier, tiny little place. So they're just down to a 2-piece now. Totally agree with you, Russ. What an amazing show, and what an amazing album.
It's a great album, isn't it? He's great searing guitars and overall thing. And then this electronic. Oh no! I mean, it's the two of them now, isn't it? So it's Loop City, which is what a lot of the pedals are needed for. But you wouldn't know. I mean, if you couldn't see them, and at this venue it was also small, where it wasn't a stage as that same floor. I can't remember the name of it. It was, but so if you were at the back, you wouldn't see the band at all. But you think there's 4 of them there as usual.
Yeah.
So tremendous that was.
Stunning.
Yeah.
Absolutely stunning. That was definitely one of my gigs of the year.
And
I'm
glad because I've liked Between the Buried and Me for Yonks. I always put them in my top 10 actually, and so them doing quite well. I mean, I think it was 7 or 8 years ago. I saw them at the Electric Ballroom, and they did as an encore Bohemian Rhapsody. And so before that, all those years ago when Queen would go off stage and just the the operatic bit was the tape, which is fine because they couldn't read that. But Between the Buried and Me and probably other bands but then you don't need to walk off the stage because now the whole audience are the operatic bit. So it was they didn't it was the whole song. It wasn't even just all the big guitar bit. So all of us in the audience were doing all the operatic bits anyway. So
that's fantastic.
Perfect. So they're prog definitely.
Well, one of the most special things that I saw this year, I went to Cafe Oto to see Hekla, who is their Icelandic theremin artist. And she sort of has a mixture of Sun and John Carpenter in what she produces with a theremin, which you wouldn't think was possible. She also has some processing, some pedals and things. And she's sort of shrouded in darkness. And it was just absolutely incredible, not a pop show, not for the kids, but just atmosphere. I love going to those kind of things. And Oto is one of my favorite spaces as well, just because of the intimacy and the atmosphere there. Julian, best gig for you this year?
God, blimey, that's a question. Actually, just off the top of my head, Mogwai, Crystal Palace during the summer, I thought were absolutely amazing. Double bill of them and Lankham. But Mogwai, I think because I saw Mogwai in Brixton last year, but unfortunately I was sat upstairs for that one, and the sound upstairs is horrendous. It took them ages to get the balance right. But at Crystal Palace, they were just on it from the beginning. And it was just such a well-paced set. It was just brilliantly put together, and it was just mesmerizing all the way through. So, yeah, off the top of my head, that's the one that springs to mind.
The first time I saw Mogwai was upstairs at the garage in Highbury, and they did that bit. It was very, very loud, and they did that bit where they do a little kind of scrape kind of noise that sort of takes the top of your skull off. I'm still affected to this day.
Yeah, I mean, they did it in Crystal Palace. They did it during Mogwai Fear Satan. It's brilliant because the best thing about it was because again, there's like people talking through gigs, which is just a real bugbear of mine. I really hate that. But with this one, as they were bringing the sound down and down and down, and the people who were sort of talking suddenly realised how loud they were, and they shut up. And this whole hush descended over the arena. And then when that massive crashing chord came in, and everyone went, "Whoa!" It was brilliant. What a moment. Loved it.
Lovely. Jerry, you got a live moment of the year?
Well, Gilmore and Wilson, two massive high points gig-wise. But I'm also going to mention Bloodstock. And the reason I'm going to mention it is, now Bloodstock is a heavy metal festival, but they are broadening their sort of scope. And again, we normally find a few bands there that fit. Or that are, Opeth or Mastodon, they're going to be in anyway. But the reason I'm highlighting Bloodstock this year is because they had Umbra, I can't remember how they pronounce it now, and Tiberius, and Hex and Lowen, all of whom have been limelight bands in prog, and all of whom are far more prog than they are metal. And it was great to see a festival giving space to our bands. Now, yeah, I get there's going to be people going, never heard of them, or they're just metal, but no, they're not. They were limelight bands, and they might be heavy because obviously you're going to have some oomph to be appearing at an event like that. But this festival wide, went, no, we will have these bands on. But it wasn't just that; it was the way the audience took to them. There's a few prog fans in the audience, but not very many. I get obviously outdoor festivals. Some of the prog audience, it's not for them. Certainly if they think it's a heavy metal festival, of course you don't expect them to be going to that. But the metal crowd welcomed these bands with open arms, really enthusiastically, gave them a lot of time, a lot of respect. They all went down an absolute storm. They all played blinding sets. It was great to see. And it was just like, total respect to a bunch of metalheads for accepting not particularly easy music to listen to, in that live setting and going for it as well. Because you looked at it and you think, if the shoe were on the other foot, can I honestly say that would have been reciprocated? And quite frankly, it might not have been,
Yeah,
so that really stuck out to me.
Hats off to Bloodstock. Hats off to them.
Yeah.
Well, it's hats off to everyone this year. What a fantastic year. Jerry, should we wrap this up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say a couple of things about the 10, the 50. Personally, I was delighted to see Tiberius and Ilo, two up and coming young prog bands featuring. I mean, Ilo got in the top 10, which is great. I mean, their second album's out on K-Scope, Legacy, which is and it's great just to see that doing so well. Great to see Sprig and Mist and the Emerald Dawn starting to move up, featuring much higher up than they have done. Well, for Sprig and Mist, this is their first year really of people the magazine really kind of writing about them, and I think the prog community at large really sort of understanding who they are, and so that was particularly good to see. And to see IQ and Solstice both in the top five, was great. It's we had this discussion. I had it with a couple of people when about this time last year when we did the 80s prog revival. Actually, I think it was 2 years ago. The 80s prog revival on the cover. I can't remember, Russ. Can you remember when we did that?
No, I could go on the floor there and look through, but I can't remember it.
But it was like, what's success? How do you gauge success? Is it having a number one album, and 4 years later, no one knows your name, and you might be hearing, "Do you want fries with that?" Or is it having a 40-year career, where you're still releasing albums? You might have never become a household name, but you're still releasing albums on your own terms. You're still performing live and selling out shows, and if you understand the parlor state of the music industry, and it's been like that for quite a while. I think I'd go for the longevity rather than the fame.
Mm-hmm.
So those
as you're saying, Jerry, there's a new audience every minute to discover it. It's new music to somebody somewhere.
Yeah, and we are seeing that. I mean, what that does do, we get. I mean, young musicians, getting fascinated by this music. They hear it in their parents' record collections. They take it and they adapt it and into something for them. And this is why prog is an ever evolving kind of genre. And yeah, maybe not everyone likes that idea, but that's it. That is how it progresses.
I'm looking forward to reading Julian's peep into the future to find out what's happening in 2026. But yeah,
he's gonna love it even more when he sees how we dressed him up.
Oh, really?
Brilliant. Can't wait. Well, it's been lovely to see you all, and thanks so much for getting together for this.
Joe, thank you for actually coming up with the idea of doing this and for hosting it, because I literally was, Christmas is coming, great. I'm just looking forward to some time off. No, let's actually get together, have a Zoom chat, and make a little podcast about the 50s. So thanks to you, Joe.
Oh, no problem. Lovely to see you all, and lovely to hopefully we'll hear from readers, and we'll see readers and chat to readers, find out their reaction to this stuff. And also,
no, they won't waste any time, I'm sure, in letting us know on social media.
So we'll say ta-ra and wave bye to everybody. Ta-ra, everyone.
Have a cool you all the best for the new year.
Yeah. Have a great winterval and see you in 2026. All right,
exactly.
Guys.
Take care, guys.
See you there.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye. Cheers all.